Hello, my friends. I love this lesson today. This lesson changed my life, and it took me a really long time to get the information on this lesson. And I went through a lot of struggles to get to the place where I could even think, and this is the lesson that changed everything for me. We've talked a lot about building blocks to understanding how to get to the place where we want to change our lives. And this today is the work to actually do it. Okay, so we started off with the foundational concept to taking control of your thoughts, which I'm going to teach you today, when we talked about mindfulness to our thoughts. Remember, we discussed that mindfulness was a practice that we could use to just focus on one thing, and there are so many benefits to a mindfulness practice all day, every day. You start off small, and you can have mindfulness practices to anything, just focusing on it, describing it non-judgmentally, and it helps focus your attention and your mind more clearly. It helps you with ADD symptoms. It helps calm you down. It clears all the chatter of your brain that's irrelevant. Meditation goes even deeper than that, and we're going to talk about meditation in an upcoming lesson. But let's dive in to taking control of your thoughts. And if you read my book, Control the Future, Thought Technology for Influencers, in it, I talk about how this worked in my life and all the thoughts I had that were leading to poor outcomes and negative emotions. I'm going to show you exactly how that works. In that book, when you read it, you did see the chapter on taking control of your thoughts and how to actually do this, but I'm going to go into more detail today. And the best way to do it is to use this. So a lot of us are auditory learners. A lot of us like to see. I'm a very visual learner. As a matter of fact, when people are talking, I'm actually writing kind of what they're saying in my mind. And I learn best by writing or visual. And a lot of people, there's another kind of learner called kinesthetic. You learn by doing. So I try to cover all these modalities in my course. And doing is applying it. And that's the best lesson, and that's the best way to understand this of all. Okay, I'm going to teach you today cognitive behavioral therapy. There's more to it than this, but this is really the meat of it, and it's the foundation to cognitive behavioral therapy, or rational emotive behavioral therapy, which is another kind of therapy that deals with, you think about it, rational emotive behavior. What does that mean? Rational is your thinking, emotive is your feelings, and behavior is your actions. Cognitive behavioral therapy is cognitive, your brain, behavioral, your actions. Positive psychology, actually, the building block for positive psychology is what I'm going to teach you today. Also, law of attraction. If you study law of attraction, it's basically the same thing. So when I put this information in your hands, you're going to be able to do this for yourself. And when you think about it, and I'm not saying there's no value in therapy. I have clients that are therapists. I have a therapist myself that I've used, and she's badass. Can I say that? Bleep that out. She's so smart. And I have learned from therapists so much, and I love therapy. I'm not trying to replace therapy. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put in your hands the tools that they use so you can go even deeper. Instead of going to therapy 1 hour a month or 1 hour a week if you're lucky and can afford it, or you have great insurance. I'm going to show you how to do this, and you can do it as much as you want in your life, and it's totally, totally empowering. When I first started this, I actually, because I was really depressed, I was in bed, right? I'd made such a mess of my life. I did this like for a week solid, and I examined all my thoughts, like every thought I had. I was mindful to my thoughts. I'd write them all down and challenge them all. So this is how those therapies I mentioned work. This is a research-based. I'm not making this up unless you don't believe in research. So forgive me if I don't get this exactly right, because I'm like backwards here. All right, my Sharpie and my whiteboard. First of all, you have an event that happens. I'm going to draw 4 squares on this, okay? And they're like in a train. One builds on the other, okay? This is how it works. There is an event that happens in our lives. Every event that happens in our lives, we have a thought about that event. And from that thought, we have a feeling. And I talk a lot about feelings in the book, and another kind of different way to approach this. And we're going to talk about that more in the class too. And you're going to like this. It's an extra tool. But let's stick on this one right here. An event produces a thought that produces a feeling, and that feeling produces an action. So this is how this works. Get this right there. I'm like backwards here. Every time there's an event that happens in our life, we have a thought about it. Every time, whether we are aware of it or not, we have a thought about every event that happens in our life. Every time we have a thought, an emotion is produced about the thought we think. Every time. And every time we have a feeling or an emotion, we have an action on that emotion or that feeling. I want to talk about how this works in real life and how this is affecting your life. And I'll bring my little chart out in a minute because I'm going to do something else to it that's really cool. I'm going to give you an example. And in my book, I give another couple of examples, but I'm going to give you an example that I came up with yesterday, trying to think of a universal example that I could give you that you could understand how this works. However, there are millions of examples because millions of events happen in our lives, and then we have millions of thoughts and millions of emotions. Whether we're aware of our thoughts, whether we're aware of our emotions, this happens, right? So let's have this scenario where this woman, could be a man too, but for the sake of just an example, we'll just say it's a woman. She's working away at her desk. She got up that morning. She had a really bad hair day. Haven't we all? Bad hair day, unless you're like a guy and your hair is really short, and then God bless you. You can't relate to this example, but you hopefully can relate to parts of it. She wakes up that morning, she's having a bad hair day. She's leaving her house and she doesn't have time to really fix her hair. And she's thinking, oh God, please help me stay in my cubicle today and have no one ask me to do anything. I already don't feel well, and I'm not feeling really great about the way I feel about myself, and I'm rushing out the door. So that's kind of the scenario that she was experiencing before she ever got to work. She's sitting in her cubicle, doing her work with her head down. Her boss walks in and her boss says, Susie, guess what? 20 minutes, you've got to give a presentation. Sorry, I didn't give you time. Just came up. You've got to give a presentation to these 15 people on X. Okay, that's the event. Her boss walks into her cubicle, says, you're going to give a presentation in 20 minutes. What's her thought? Her thought is, oh my gosh, I look awful today. I don't want to do this. My hair's a mess. I don't want to talk to anyone. And I resent that she made me do this in 20 minutes without preparation. Those are her thoughts. You can imagine some thoughts that you might have. Remember I said, after every event, there's a thought and then there's a feeling attached to every thought. So what were some of her thoughts just now? I look awful. I'm not prepared. And I resent my boss for asking me to do this. So she's got these thoughts. Now, what are some feelings? I'm not prepared. How would that feel? Self-doubt? Maybe a lot of anxiety. These feelings or these thoughts are causing her. I'm not prepared. Anxiety. I look awful. Anxiety. My boss shouldn't have asked me to do that. Resentful. So these are some of the emotions that she's feeling as she thinks these thoughts. Whenever we have a feeling, we have an action we take every single time. The best way to understand this, or one of the good ways to understand feelings and how we have actions attached to them, is if you feel fear, what do? What's your action when you feel fear? Retreat? Perhaps a lot of people retreat. That's the feeling. I'm going to retreat. I'm afraid. This thing's going to kill me. And some of the work I do as a coach is going through specific things with my clients and helping them understand if that action that they normally take of retreating is helping them when they feel this fear. That's a really good example of an action that happens with an emotion. In this case, in this scenario I'm teaching you today, Susie, when she feels anxious, she bites her nails. And we all do all kinds of things when we feel anxious. It can be having a glass of wine. It can be yelling at someone. It can be just being quiet. We have actions we take when we feel anxious. And there can be more than one, but some of them, sometimes they're very prevalent with so-called negative emotions. We have an action we take. It can also be overeating. All kinds of things. You may be thinking of some as you're listening to me right now. What action do you take when you feel anxious? In Susie's case, when she feels anxious, she bites her nails. And when she bites her nails, okay, let's come back to this. When she bites her nails, get this right, she takes this action of biting her nails. And every time we take an action, it becomes the event in the next chain. And that is how our life can do downward spirals or upward spirals, or how we feel out of control or feel like life is just happening to us because we have all these things happen, but we don't understand how much we can control these events. Because when she had this event here that she couldn't maybe control, she took action on it without even knowing, and she created another event here. The event was biting her nails. When she was biting her nails, what do you think her thought was after that event? The next thought that she was thinking was, I always do that. Why do I respond that way? Now I look even worse than I did before. And people are going to notice that my nails are bleeding. And Jane over there, her nails always look good. So these are the thoughts that she's thinking when she bites her nails. And then she has a feeling about her thoughts. So her thoughts were, I feel bad about myself. Jane doesn't do this. Why do I always do this? Really bad, like beating up on yourself, self-punishment kind of thoughts. And when she thinks these thoughts about herself, how do you think she feels? She feels like she doesn't have self-confidence, low self-confidence. She feels shame. She feels disappointment in herself. She feels even more negative emotion than she felt when her boss first asked her to do this. So she's feeling really bad. And then when she feels bad about herself, she shuts down. Her action is when she feels ashamed, she shuts down. Her action is shutting down. Now you can keep playing through this scenario, these chains of when she shuts down, what happens next and what she thinks about it. But if we have thoughts that keep going round and round and round in our head with no resolution, this is how that happens. And in Susie's example, she kept going round and round, kind of this downward spiral, and she only had 20 minutes for this presentation. So you can imagine how well the presentation went after 20 minutes. What I want to teach you today is how to change this, because everything changes with your thoughts. The event's going to still be the same here. Sometimes we create our own events, a lot of times. Sometimes events happen in life. Often things happen that we can't explain. If you study law of attraction, it says you attract everything that you're thinking. And there's a lot of truth to that, and we can go into that later. But for this example, and we know a lot of times, and even the people that study law of attraction will say stuff happens all the time to them. So life, I want to remind you this, life is not always going to be easy. It's not going to always be a bed of roses. Things happen in life that we don't like. That happens. But how we respond to it can change everything. So the outcome of this event, if we kept doing this chain reaction all the way down, is when she was asked to do this presentation, she had a poor presentation. So in a way, her thoughts created her poor presentation. It wasn't that her hair looked bad, or that she wasn't feeling prepared, or that her boss asked her to do something when she didn't feel like it. Those things didn't lead to a poor presentation. And I hope this empowers you, because sometimes we feel like we're at the whim of our environment and or our circumstances, and we can't get out of it. But I'm going to show you how you can empower yourself, right? This is so cool. This is life-changing. When you have an event that happens, and let's take Susie's example. In Susie's example, she had her boss walk in and say, you're going to do this presentation. Remember her thoughts about it? I'm not prepared. I'm angry that she's asking me to do it. Let's think about if Susie could control her thoughts, which she can, and which you can, how the scenario would play out differently. The boss walks in. Susie, I need you to do this presentation in 20 minutes to 15 people. And her thought initially is, oh, my hair looks awful. But you know what? I have really admired women and men who've gotten up there and done a presentation, and they didn't look perfect, and they knocked it out of the park. And they just weren't bothered by the way they looked. I really admired them. Yeah, I'm going to be like that today. And you know what? I only have 20 minutes, but I really have done a lot of work on this project, and I know I can do it. I'm sure I can do it. It's going to be great. Now, if those are her thoughts at that point, if those are her thoughts, how do you think she's going to feel? She's going to feel self-confident. She's going to feel proud. She's going to feel up for the challenge. She's going to anticipate a good outcome. And when she has those feelings of pride, let's label the feelings what they are: anticipation, pride, confidence, right? Eagerness. When she has those feelings, what kind of actions is she going to take at that point? She's going to get on her computer. She's going to pull out her best stuff. She's going to put her hair back in a ponytail. She's going to stand up straight, and she's going to walk out that door, and her presentation is going to go smashing. There's some other thoughts you can think, such as, I don't really care what they think about my hair. I've got this, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm going to do a great job, and good's going to come out of it no matter what. There's all kinds of thoughts that you can choose to think in any given situation. That's why the first key to this is to understand what's going on in your thoughts to begin with. What are you thinking? And a tool for understanding what you're thinking, if you're not used to being mindful to your thoughts, is what am I feeling? So if I ever feel negative emotion, and a lot of people will say there's no negative emotion, it's just pointing you towards something. And that's true, but I also don't like negative emotion. I don't like feeling that way. I suffered a lot from negative emotion. So when I feel negative emotion, I call it negative because I don't like it. But I also think, okay, it's pointing me towards my thoughts. It's pointing me towards what I'm thinking, because I know that my thoughts create my feeling. If I'm feeling angry and I feel angry, and anger can feel good and empowering for a while, and then it doesn't feel so good very quickly. So if I'm feeling angry, I think my thoughts are, what am I feeling? What am I thinking that's causing me to be angry? He shouldn't have done that to me. Or I feel disempowered. And when I think those thoughts, he shouldn't have done that to me, I think, what other thoughts can I think? Well, of course he did this to me because that's who he is. It's up to me to change this situation. And instead of feeling the anger, I start to feel more empowered or can solve the problems. See? It's a really little bit about your thoughts, and it takes practice. It takes practice. The other piece of this is knowing, and this is where therapists come in great, and coaches too. When I'm thinking a thought, is this a productive thought? Okay, no, it's not a productive thought. I got that. It's making me miserable, but I don't even know what to think. I don't even know what to think right now. So I will tell you, when you're starting to take control of your thoughts and replace your thoughts, that you have to kind of trick your mind a little bit. So at first it feels like the old cartoon with a devil on the shoulder and an angel on the shoulder. And the devil's telling you to think these thoughts that feel bad, and the angel's trying to give you other thoughts. And you're so used to talking to the devil and listening to the devil that you don't quite believe the angel. So the angel has to give you a thought, and it's really weird. It's like using one half of your mind to tell the other half of your mind what to do. You have to, and this is how you need to treat your thoughts, because they're everything. Challenge them, wrestle them down to the ground and kill them, or feed them good food if you like them. When you're first replacing your thoughts, you have to come up with something that is believable. And if you're used to thinking negative thoughts, then your mind, you have to kind of trick your mind into thinking thoughts that are believable. Now, affirmations are great, but say I'm poor and I really, really want to be rich. I really want it because I'm sick of my life. You can't say an affirmation that says, I am rich, I'm a millionaire, because your brain doesn't believe it. So you have to kind of massage your thoughts a little bit to come up with one that is believable. So in Susie's case, I gave you one extreme example to the other extreme example where she's, she's a rock star and she knows it. And I can tell you, in my personal example, my thoughts were really down on myself. And it didn't take me one day to get to where I think thoughts like, I always get what I want, I got this, I might feel afraid, but I'm pushing through. I'm doing this. I don't care what people think about me. I feel good about myself. Those are my thoughts today. But it took me a little time. So you have to come up with something that's believable, a thought that feels believable. So when you're doing this work, your homework is going to be to take an example where the outcome didn't turn out very well. You didn't like the outcome. And you're going to do this chain of events, right? You're going to think about what the first event was all the way back and what your thoughts were about it and your feelings and your actions, so you could come up with kind of a retro look at how this really played out and how you really could have controlled it. And then you're going to go back and you're going to think of some thoughts that you could have had for a better outcome. You can do this on paper so you can see it logically, but sometimes when you're in a lot of anxiety or a lot of depression or a lot of stress, or you're just really struggling with something, you have to give yourself little tiny thoughts. Like the example in my book, I was trying to come up with a new example, but this is like the most powerful example I have personally. It's when I had lost everything and I didn't have my kids. And one day, I woke up and I barely had gotten out of bed because I was so depressed. And I saw the kids walking to school. And I just thought, I could never be happy ever again. I miss my kids so much. And so I did this exercise and people told me, oh, you'll be happy again. You know, you really will. God has your best interests. You know, it's just a season. Your kids will come back to you. I could not, for the life of me, believe any of that because my pain was so great and I've so much believed I could never be happy again. And so honestly, this was a game changer for me. And if you have one sticking point thought that really is keeping you burdened, you might have to play with the thought. And what you do is you think, and I do this with my clients. If you've been one of my clients, you know I've done this with you. I say, do you believe this thought? So in this example, if someone was coaching me, they would have said, do you believe that your kids will come back to you? That thought didn't make me feel any better because I had so much doubt. Do you believe that thought? No, I don't believe that thought. Do you believe that you can be happy again? No, I don't believe that thought. Do you believe that you may never be as happy as you once were, but you can be happy again? Yes, I believe that thought. So I did this work myself, and when I believed that thought, my feelings were just a little less depressed, and my actions, I got more energized to have more energy for my actions. So that's what I'm telling you. When you first work on really powerful thoughts that have become beliefs, beliefs are thoughts that you just keep thinking over and over again. If you have a belief that you've had since childhood, that you believe so strongly, you might have to massage it a little bit and come up with a new thought that you believe. And slowly, and then after that, you're going to come up with a new thought that feels a little bit better. And another little tip I want to give you in this one is look for evidence of your thought and look for evidence of a new thought. So I had a client once who was struggling and she was overweight, and everyone in her family was overweight. They were always overweight, and she could never lose weight no matter what diet she ever tried. And what finally broke through for her was researching women who were exactly in her place, who had a family, that they were all overweight, that kept the weight off, and they took the weight off and they kept the weight off. And the fact that kind of challenged her belief that had to be true. When she started finding evidence of what she wanted to believe rather than what she'd believed, right? So find evidence of it. Challenge your thought. I talk about challenging your thoughts. Say things like, is that really true? In the example of Susie, I said, she came up with an example of a person that she'd observed, or thoughts of someone that she'd observed that did a presentation with hair looking bad and did a good presentation. And she admired that person because the person didn't care. So what Susie was doing there is she was looking for evidence of why she could be successful there. We're retraining our brain to look at evidence of why we can be successful and positive instead of thinking the thoughts all the time and often collecting proof that prove our thoughts. Well, the internet says I'm always going to be depressed, or that's what we do. We spend a lot of time looking for evidence of those thoughts. So start to look for evidence of the positive. It really is all what's in your mind. You are making things happen in your life, good or bad. That doesn't mean if something awful's happened to you that you're responsible. I'm not telling you that. But there are kids who have been abused that grow up to be abusers. And there are kids that have been abused that grow up to save kids' lives. What's the difference in those two examples? It's how they think about their experience. That's the only difference. And so even if things happen to you in your life, even if your boss walks up to your cubicle when you're having a bad hair day, you can have a great presentation. And you're actually going to feel better about that dang presentation with a bad hair than if your hair looked great that day. So see, that's how this worked. We're going to continue talking about this. I hope it empowers you. Spend time on it. Look at your thoughts. And we're going to have some homework on this that I hope is super helpful. Email us at team@controlthefuture.tech if you have any questions about this, and especially, please let us know the success you're having. I love that. It makes my job. Okay. All right. Have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.